right, we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the JH Show. We are chilling. It's just Austin and I tonight until Jeff gets here. I don't think Jaden's gonna make it because his brother got married, so he's occupied with a after party and stuff. So, and Wolf will be back next week. Wolf's been going through some shit. I'll give you a little update on him. He is he's struggling like everybody has their down moments. He's going through that period right now, so that's I'm not gonna force anybody to be on the podcast, especially when they're in that stage of mental stress, if you will, and trying to uh, heal yourself mentally. So he's going through that period right now. So I'm not like pushing him to be here. So um, we wish him the best, and hopefully he'll be here next week. So. Anyway, Austin and I are here. Glad to have you. What have you been up to, my guy?
It's work and trying to get back to what we can call normal.
Yeah. What do you do for work again? I know you've told me before. You're a metal
Uh,
worker?
no, I don't work. Well, I work with it, but I pull sheet metal. So I drive a big thing called a hub tex. It's sideways side loader. So you drive this thing with a joystick and a little spinny thing. And it's got big forks and it goes up really high. It's like a forklift that goes 2 stories.
Okay.
And I pull
Oh
sheet
yeah, yeah,
metal.
yeah. I know the big forklifts. I've run one before. They're fun.
They're fun.
Yeah, they're fun. So you pull sheet metal. And
Yeah.
okay,
And process it for orders.
that's cool. Um, yeah. So I right now I'm working construction. So I've been doing construction shit for over 6 years now. I started out doing carpentry, finished carpentry, like woodwork and stuff. Like the desk I use right now, I built in the shop I worked for. I love it. It's dark walnut, my favorite type of wood. Um, and I love it. I put it together myself, and it's great. I should have made it longer, but I had to fit this thing into my car because I didn't have a truck. So it's about perfect for all three monitors I have and everything. So it works.
Yeah.
Um, so I started out in I don't think I've ever talked about this on the podcast. So this is a first. So I started out with finished carpentry. Then I moved to Salt Lake after leaving the company I was working for, a little hometown company. Um, it taught me a lot though. So I moved up here to Salt Lake and started doing framing and like house construction and stuff, which was really cool. I enjoyed that. Then I left that company because of arguments with the boss. Just dumb shit, and I fucked that job up. So I left that job, and then I went to, let's see, where did I go to next? So after I lost that job, I went to a metal recycling company, the biggest one in the state. I started working for them, where they recycle all the metals. Like they get 1 million pounds of metal every day. Like some days more. I mean, the trucks were coming in and out every day. I was in charge of sorting metal, stainless steel, aluminum, and copper. Just sorting it all out. That was my job.
I
Um,
detest stainless, man.
Stainless is interesting. I like stainless just for the fact that it's a harder type of like I don't know. There's just some rigidity to it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But steel was the easy one out of those to sort because you'd pick it up and you're like, oh yeah, that's steel because it's the
Yeah.
heaviest. So, um, yeah, stainless was the shiniest, and then you had aluminum, which was the lightest, cheapest shit. So we got so much
Yeah.
aluminum. So a lot of the stuff that came through there were automobiles. I mean, we get thousands of automobiles every day. Trucks would come in with just tons of them. Then they get thrown through this massive shredder. The whole process was really cool. They get thrown in the massive shredder, then all of that is put to a conveyor belt that goes to a magnetic sorter. So everything that's not magnetic goes to my side. It's split into like two sides, kind of a Y thing. So everything that's magnetic, like all the steel and stuff, gets kicked over into a big pile and then loaded on trucks and shipped out. So, and then the stuff that wasn't magnetic, sometimes you'd get stuff that, like, some of the metals like the steel wouldn't catch in the magnet. It would come over to my side. That's why we have the sorters, like what I was doing. We would sort the metal out so that if any steel came through or any other materials, we'd just sort it all out. We wouldn't, Um, the cool part was like I'd just be up in a shack. We called it the shack because the conveyor belt would just run. There was this big barrel sorter with these holes in it, so the materials would fall out. If they were small enough to fit through those holes, they'd fall out onto belts below that and then get kicked over to another spot. It's a really a immaculate system, but it was really cool. And then anything that was too big for that tumbler went over to another belt where the shack is, and then we sort all the small shit in the shack. So it's a pretty cool job. But the problem was it didn't pay much, and I have a lot of bills to pay. The price of living's getting ridiculous. Um,
Oh yeah.
so I was like, well, I got to do something. So I left that place and started working for this other construction company. They built, so all the like office buildings that have all the like the tiles in the ceilings.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what I was installing. Well, I worked for that company for 2 days.
That's quite the
I
career.
I got paid really well, but that's why I wanted the job. I was making like 25 an hour. It was awesome. But the problem was I did something stupid. I crawled up on an I-beam to actually so we had this drill. We were trying to drill these cable holes in the I-beam for
Yeah.
the ceiling tiles. I crawled up on this I-beam and one of the electricians said, "Hey, get down." And I like got down. Then he went and snitched on me, and HR came over and fired me. So, yeah, 2 days of working there, but that's whatever. Then I went to the company I'm working for now. It's a concrete construction company, so we basically build all the walls and framing for huge industrial buildings like an Amazon warehouse. We build all the walls and concrete for that. So that's
Yeah.
what I'm doing now. It's pretty cool. Um, yeah. Anyway, how many jobs? Okay, let's talk about jobs. What have you done in your lifetime?
Dude, like so basic, right? Like I started working for a place called Moravian Falls Grill in Moravian Falls, North Carolina, where I grew up, and worked for a lady. Her name was Shelly. She was a weird person. She went from like, taking us to this place called the Depot. It's like this really expensive steakhouse for Christmas and bought everyone's food, right? To then calling to cuss you.
What the
Like,
fuck? So wait, what
yeah,
was the job?
I was a dishwasher.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. And at the grill it was terrible, but she had another restaurant she owned called Mini Moose, and they put it beside a place called Glenn's. It's an ice cream place.
Okay.
Glenn's had been around since the 50s. They had generational customers.
That's awesome.
She opened an ice cream shop right next to that because she's stupid. Um, and I was a terrible worker. Like for my first few jobs, man, I just, like most teenagers didn't care. I was just like, oh,
Right.
I'm getting paid money, you know. Um, and went from job to job. I lost my job at Dollar General. I was being a prick. I should have been fired several times over, but somehow Dollar General, when a manager change happens, certain managers value certain things more, so they reset your discipline. So I'd get wrote up and wrote up and wrote up, and we had, I think, three managers in like 9 months.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So it kept resetting. Eventually, one of them just said, "You're out."
Yeah. Um,
That then I went to Kohl's and did online pickup. Then I went from there to UPS, and that was the worst experience of my
you
life.
didn't like UPS, really?
I
What
was
what did
not
you
a,
do? Were you in the facility, the shipping facility?
yeah,
Okay. Yeah, so I've heard this so much from people that work at Amazon facilities, UPS facilities, even the post office. When you're in the packaging and shipping shit, that fucking sucks.
oh, it's bad. Like, and our place was understaffed, but this is before the pandemic, right? No, this is just after. So, you know, we have peak seasons, right? Where like around Thanksgiving to like middle of January, it's hectic. they had multiple different stages of peak seasons. So there'd be days like I'd be on 3 trucks, and it's kind of like, the conveyor belt. But the thing about it is, if you miss a little piece that big, they don't care, right? They're like,
Hmm.
some of it, there's not going to be perfect efficiency. If a
Right.
package needs to go on this truck and it weighs 75 pounds and you've got multiple packages going to different trucks out of order, it will run away from you, but they still want it. So you have to go get it. It was awful. And
Jesus.
they were terrible to us, man. They treated us so poorly because we were in the union and that's what they could do to get us to do anything. So supervisors couldn't be in the union and I'm not in a union state. So I basically had unlimited protection.
Right.
But their response to that is like terrible verbal abuse. And I am not sensitive, but when you get told you're worthless and you ought to be dead, and how could a mother
Yeah.
raise such a useless piece of shit? Like you
That
hear
shit
that
gets
day
to
in,
you.
day out,
Yeah.
six
Yeah,
days a week for
that
six
shit
straight
gets to
months.
you. So my first job, well, not my first job, but the when I started doing construction shit, when I was doing the finished carpentry, like you say, that shit gets to you. My boss was an absolute asshole, and his sons, like, okay, he was an asshole on certain days. But I could handle him. He was very composed. He was very smart. He had a degree in psychology. He was very, very well educated. Um, the problem was he was smart enough to the point where if you tried to argue a point with him, you were wrong, and he would outsmart you with the way he spoke and the way he was smarter than me. So I hated arguing with him because he was too smart. I can't argue with someone that smart, so I just didn't. His sons were even worse. The sons were just stupid pricks. They were just kids, 17, 16, and they just were shit. We would work in the shop, and they just treated me like assholes, dude. They would just verbally just degrade me, and I was like, I'm not gonna work for this anymore. It's just that shit just gets to you. So I get what you mean by the verbal abuse. It's stupid. No one should have to work like that.
No. And now I'm with Alro, um, and they are multiple locations across the mostly the eastern side of the U.S. Um, but like I said, I pull sheet metal. Um, Companies will order crazy shit. Like, I don't think I can say names because this is broadcast, but
Right.
there's a company that makes expensive light fixtures, and that's all they do is hand make light fixtures. One of their most expensive light fixtures costs $11,000 for one.
Jesus Christ.
Like,
Is it a
so really,
chandelier? Like a chandelier, like a
yeah,
fancy? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and they send shit to like foreign royalty. I think a couple of their light fixtures made it to the White House, but they order insane amounts of copper and brass. And if you don't know about brass and copper, it's so incredibly sensitive.
Right. Yeah, it's
Like,
very easily it's
it's
malleable. It's
super
very
dense.
malleable and
Yeah,
it's
it's so
dense. It's a
dense.
heavy,
That's the
heavy,
issue.
yeah.
It's weird because it's
So
imagine a piece of paper, something as delicate as a piece of paper weighing 200, 300
right.
pounds.
Yeah, it's heavy shit. So do you when they make those orders of copper and brass, does it come in sheets or does it come in like rods? Does it come in both? I'm guessing.
Both,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I would guess
Yeah,
it's
but
both.
that's Barpole and Saw World. They're
Right.
cutting pieces to length, or that's not me. They're beside me.
Yeah, you're just in
Um,
the distributing portion,
n
right?
Yeah, no,
Uh,
so here's the warehouse, right? Here's the sheet department, and there's these giant racks and these narrow aisles that I'm driving this thing sideways through. And it comes up, it reaches out, picks it up, and brings it back down. Then you've got bar pull where they got another hub techs, except they're pulling these drop pans and they look like staples if you stretch them out 20 feet.
yeah.
They're shaped like this and they're long. And yeah, I'll pull stuff like that. Like they'll order 40.04 thickness copper sheets. They'll be like
Those are
36 by
pretty thick.
48,
Yeah.
bunch of shear jobs. Um, and they're so picky, like how we package it. If it just looks like it could be bad, even if, the material's totally fine, if it looks like it's packaged bad, they'll send it back. And when you start getting that much copper and brass together, that equates to like 40, 50, $60,000.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so
So
one of their
it's
orders
go
was
ahead.
like one of their orders like 400 pieces for me. It equated to like $150,000. Like it's
Jesus.
absurd amounts of money because
It's
Alro is not cheap. Our whole
it's
thing is next day. We're the nicest. We've got the most random, strangest materials. So if
right.
you need something really obscure, then we've got it.
Yeah,
That's
so
their
it's funny, and I'm glad that I've worked in the industry of metals because you and I can relate on that. When you're talking about
yeah
metals, I understand exactly what you're talking about. So, the coolest thing with the jobs I've worked. So, when I was 16, I was like, all right, I'm old enough to have a job. I made a promise to myself I would never work a job that required me to make food for other people. I would
yeah.
never work a fast food job in my life. I never
I
have. I've
I was
never
a
done that.
dishwasher. I didn't do any
Yeah.
cooking. I refused.
Yeah, no, I made that as a promise to myself. It's the one thing that I've kept constant in my entire life. A lot of things I'll make promises, even like New Year's resolutions. I don't really hold up to them sometimes. This has been the one constant in my life. I will never work a job that requires me to cook food for other people. I think it's a job and it needs to be done, and if you need money, go for it, but personal standards take precedence over that. I'm not going to do that because I'm not saying I'm better than the people that work those jobs because those jobs need to be done and there's people to do it, but I'm not the guy to do it. That's a personal choice, right? So I've
Yeah.
never worked a job that required me to cook food, fast food, anything. Doesn't, yeah. And so, but the nice thing is with the jobs I've worked is I've learned a lot. So the first job, official job that I actually had was I was a caretaker for my aunt's house. She had a house in the town that I grew up in, but she lived like a couple states over. But I was caretaker for the land, right? I would mow the lawn, I would trim it up, I would make it look nice. I would mow the field down next to the house. It was always just grass and weeds and shit. I would take a lawnmower over there and mow all that down. But that was my first job, and she paid me awesomely. Like that was a great starting job, and I wish now that I look back on that I would have been able to save money a lot better. I've sucked at saving money. I'm terrible at it, but because there's always shit I want to buy. But now that I'm in a pinch where I have this motorcycle and I got bills to pay off, I can't spend as much money as far as things that I want, right? But the second job I had, so I worked for a KOA first. That was my first actual official job. Was I worked for KOA, and the KOA was cool. I learned a lot about how the campgrounds work, and I met a lot of cool people. It didn't last long because I was working for the Bureau of Land Management, the Forest Service, and I would go out. I was on call to go fight fires, wildland fire, which was awesome. That's probably my favorite job I've ever had. It paid amazingly, and I worked my ass off. It was fun. I met a lot of cool people. I'm friends with people from all over the U.S. I've been to a lot of. My favorite thing about that job was I've been to so many states on the western side of the U.S. because of that job. I was able to go travel all over the place, and I loved just the environment of the firefighters and all of that. It was really cool. So that was my second job, but I was on call a lot, and I got fired from KOA because I would just be like, it would be like 2 in the morning. I'd get a call from the fire service. They'd be like, "Hey, you need to be here at 6 a.m. We're gonna roll out," and I was like, "Okay." I was on call, so I'd leave for 2 weeks at a time. So we had 2 week rotations for crews, and so I'd just leave for 2 weeks at a time, and I lost my KOA job. Didn't bother me at all. I had no problem with that. Then I started working for a gas station. That was my next job. Gas station was cool because I would work night shift where, I mean, I think I'd start my shift at around 9 o'clock. I'd work from 9 to 7 in the morning and then get off. Which was great because the period there was a certain time because you're tired as hell, right? Night shifts suck. But
I've been there.
where I was working is off the freeway on the side where no one really goes except for people that want to go over there like truckers. We had this big parking lot, so I'd get a lot of truckers. But there was a period of time. It was about from 1 in the morning to about 3 in the morning where no one came in, and I worked there for almost a year and a half. But I realized that that period of 1 in the morning to 3 in the morning, no one came in. I learned that very quickly, so I was like, "It's nap time, motherfuckers." So we we had all these boxes of like styrofoam cups and like cup lids and straws and all the shit we would have for the truckers and sodas and shit. We took the boxes that we would collapse and we made a bed. Me and my best friend worked there, and we made literally a bed out of cardboard. And some nights, because we would
That's
work.
that sounds awesome and terrible
it
at the
was
same time.
it was fun, dude. So we would work. Uh, there was usually only one person at night shift, so I would work. You know, and my buddy, he was the opposing shift, so he would come in at 7 and relieve me. But some nights he was like, "Fuck it, I'm gonna stay awake." He'd come in at midnight after he'd slept a few hours. Come in, we'd chill and chat bullshit for hours. I'd go take a nap. He'd cover the register free. Like he'd just cover it for me because he knew we'd take naps. We both did that for each other. It was so fun, dude. I love that job. But I quit that job and then I was with my parents because I got kicked out of my apartment for. I posted a video of me tripping balls on LSD, and my landlords found it. They didn't like that very much, so they evicted me. Well, unofficially evicted me. They were like, "All right, well, we found this video. We don't really like it." They were very religious, so they were like, "We found this video. We don't really like it. We'd like you to be out of here by the end of the month." I was like, "Okay, well, fuck. I don't know where to go now." So I'm in this tiny hometown. Everybody knows everybody, and I really didn't know where to go. And then I messaged my friend Nathan, who I'm living with now, and I was like, where can we move to? I mean, I gotta go to the city because that's where all the jobs are. So we moved to Salt. I moved to Salt Lake with him, and I started working all the construction jobs because that's the one thing I've known how to do for so long. But and that's where I'm at now. It's been a crazy life.
Yeah, my life's been kind of like we moved to Gastonia, just outside of Charlotte, North Carolina, and I work in Charlotte, which is the biggest city in
Yeah,
North
Charlotte's
Carolina.
huge.
And like I said, good job. I've already got benefits, crazy shit like that. And
Yeah,
I'm still at home, but I'm 21. I know a lot of people say I look like I'm almost 30.
yeah. My roommate's like, "Hey, the dinner's done." Yeah, I'll go get that in a minute. But we still got
Yeah,
30 minutes of podcast left. I'll go get it in a second. Jesus Christ.
yeah, man.
Um,
But yeah, it's crazy. Like talking about jobs, what I think's interesting is like I have noticed a shift in people because our jobs are labor. You have to work hard for a result. You can't just stand at a cash register. You have to do stuff in order for you to
right.
make progress. But people don't want to do that anymore. So, like, especially
Oh
younger
yeah.
people.
Oh, right now,
So, like,
dude. So if
yeah.
you don't have a job in this time period right now, everybody's hiring.
Oh, dude.
Every single place that you can think of is hiring because since COVID hit, everyone got lazy. We all sat at home. We got these stimulus checks. Everyone got used to that. Now, there's everyone's hiring because no one wants to work.
Dude,
So,
like if you just want to work at McDonald's, they're giving
yeah.
like $300 and $400 bonuses,
Yeah.
dude. Like
Right.
you're take this opportunity while you have it, because it will never
No.
happen again. And if it does, the economy's collapsing.
Right.
Like forget bonuses, right? But I know we've had the Great Depression and they're like, stuff like that, but we were
Yeah.
that was a time where we couldn't really like check up on each other if we moved away. We couldn't, we got stuck where we were. But now, like, I'm
Well,
nowhere near you, and here we are
right.
talking. So this is the biggest event to happen globally while we're all connected.
Yeah, it's
So
pretty crazy. And with the thing of technology is somebody can get famous on TikTok because of something stupid, something simple and stupid. They could have 2 million followers, they can get sponsorships, they can make money that way. That it's I mean, it's a great way to make money, but it's not always sustainable. So, you
I've
know,
yeah,
the thing is with the jobs we do is and not a lot of people want to do them because you bust your fucking ass, dude. My knees are killing me from going up and down at work and just concrete and construction. It's a tough job, and it needs to be done. And like you said, the sign-on bonuses now are insane. Amazon, I saw an ad for Amazon. The sign-on bonus was $2,000. They're paying
yeah,
2 grand to get people to work because no one wants to work. It's
yeah.
ridiculous.
And I think it's pretty indicative and also really scary because the way as time goes on, people become more left leaning,
Right.
and that's okay, you know, but a lot of their ideas are more about like one, let the government take care of everything, and I believe the government is bad at everything. Two is, you know, the way companies are like, especially social media companies, like you said, these TikTok people, they get famous, but then once they get too famous and there's a lot of people on there, then they start to really control them and the
Right.
people that watch them and their thoughts. And companies now, I mean, like you said, with HR coming to fire you over crawling up on a beam, it wasn't just because it was unsafe. It was because they don't want to pay that.
Yeah,
Right. They don't
exactly.
wanna
And
take like,
that's
if
what
you get hurt,
yeah,
they they don't wanna do
they're
that.
liable. And that's the one thing that HR lady just chewed me out for an hour. She was just chewing me out for, "Hey, we want you to be safe and we understand that you had to do that, but we can't afford the risk basically. We don't want to." Yeah, so it's I don't know. It's
Um,
kind of a broken system as far as HR goes for certain companies. I've worked for a lot of companies up here, but there's like two that I know of that are just terrible with HR. They just don't want to. They'll anything like not even being rigged up in your harness right. They'll chew you out for it and you're fired, or you get a 3 day suspension. You know, just shit like that. And I understand where they're coming from, because it's because of stupid people, dude. Stupid people. They'll fall off a ladder, then they sue the company. They win millions of dollars because of it, and it puts the company in jeopardy. So I get where they're
Dude,
coming from.
there's a guy that I work with, and he's a great guy. He's been very good to me. But we have these overhead cranes that we use, and they're controlled by a little remote. They look like a old school TV remote. Big buttons, they're a brick. And there's these steel beams and frames of the building in these bays that we have, and this big giant I-beam based crane is there, and it's just this motor on wheels that goes back and
Yep,
forth,
I
and
know the
then
crane you're talking about. Yeah.
it takes the cranes back. He he was in A-Bay and aluminum plate cutting, and he was pulling something down from the rack and putting it back. He turned his forklift with his forks up, and he ran full speed into the crane and brought that thing down. This is like
Yeah, I know the cranes.
this is like 100
Yeah.
tons coming down.
Mm-hmm.
He could have killed him. Um, Now he's out because he put on steel on aluminum plates, even though they're not very heavy, they still weigh a lot.
Yeah.
And so the edges are very well cut because it's not super soft like copper, but it's still, they can cut it a lot more precisely, and the corners are more jagged. It cut through a strap. He strapped it instead of putting it on a chain,
Mm.
and its weight cut that strap, and he dropped it on his foot, and it skidded down his shin bone and cut that to pieces
Oh yeah.
and crushed his boots. And I mean, we have steel
She.
toe and
Yeah.
metatarsal guards, and it still broke his foot. So like shit like that. And he did
Yeah.
this within like a month and a half apart. I'm like, dude,
Accidents
like
happen, and I get it, but you gotta be aware of your job in general. You gotta know just safety procedure, right? he should have known better. But and that just comes with experience, and that comes with working a certain amount of days and months and years at said job, right? If you're a new person and management puts you on a job like that, that's not right. I've seen it happen before. We had a crane operator for the company I'm working for now. He just got hired on like a week ago. He'd done some crane training, but he dropped one of these huge steel trusses, like the roof trusses,
Yep,
the
I know
big
what you're
steel.
talking
Yeah,
about.
he didn't have it rigged up right, rigged correctly, and it snapped and fell probably 30 feet onto the concrete, cracked the concrete, broke the frame. Like, it was all bent and fucked up. It just cost money, and he probably lost his. I haven't seen him in a long time, so he probably lost his job. But it's experience over a period of years. And it goes to management too. You can't really just. That's the thing now. Everyone's hiring. Everyone wants people to work because no one wants to, and they'll just kind of throw whoever they want on there because they need the work done. But
Yeah,
it's kind of a problem with that, because someone, say ZipRecruiter. Okay, I use ZipRecruiter because of trying to find a job, and it's great to find a job. I could find a job within a day. I could go get hired on. But ZipRecruiter is a problem because you can literally put whatever you want in your resume, and they don't really fact check it ever. Um, my resume is accurate. It's straight to the point. It's honest. But the problem is people could just go put whatever they want in that resume. Like, oh, I've worked for construction for 8 years, and then you get hired on and you go to do framing and stuff, and you don't even know how to read a tape measure. Like,
yeah, and what's interesting is like technically I worked at a warehouse when I was at UPS, but this is a totally different kind of warehouse. I mean, I wasn't really equipped for the job. I was, but I wasn't. But, I had a background where grew up in a very rural area, used gators and tractors and stuff like that since I was a kid, and operating machines is what I do now. I drive these big machines around. So I had a background in it. It just wasn't formal training. But we got these guys coming in, right? And they don't know their ass from a hole in the ground. Like
right.
these dudes are like
Yeah.
a year younger than me, but I had to go through the hard lessons of getting fired from a job and, you know, moving and trying to start my life. And these kids who've lived there and had all these opportunities around them don't know how to appreciate them. So they come in and they sit around or, they we're trying to get work done and they're just kind of there.
Yep.
And it's frustrating. My coworkers are furious. They're like, this guy's cut 4 lines in like fucking 9, 10 hours.
Yep.
But
That's the
meanwhile,
thing is,
this guy's cut 30. One day I pulled 24 lines by myself. And
right.
that's a lot.
Yeah, and the ones that to last the longest, my dad's worked at a power plant company for almost 35 years now, and the reason is he just understands, and it's one of the most important things he taught me was your job might suck ass. It might be terrible, but you got to overlook that fact and realize I've got bills to pay. I've got to live my life. So I'm going to bust my ass so that I can live my life. And, you put money aside and you save up for shit. And over a period of years, you just get better at your job. People understand that you're pretty good at your job. We'll give you a raise. It's working your butt off for the future, and the kids now, they don't understand that concept of,
Well,
yeah, jobs
this
might
thing,
suck. Oh, yeah, well, I'll
I
get into that
love
in a
these,
second.
but the problem is everything is instant
Yeah,
gratification.
phones are
But
instant
jobs
gratification. Yeah.
like ordering shit. Like I can have someone bring me my food. If I want the most obscure, weird shit, Amazon will have it to me in
Right.
3 days.
Yep.
So
Instant
so
gratification. And it's look at so let's take YouTube for example. I've been doing YouTube for almost 10 years now. I've took my YouTube down for the moment. I may come back. I may do a big like comeback thing, but the thing with YouTube is I've noticed since I started to where it is now is videos have It's all everyone. Well, TikTok, perfect example. They're 1 minute videos of just stupid shit or funny shit, or everybody wants that quick. Just hey, I want it quick. I want it now. Um, and it's kind of fucked up our society.
Yeah. Like
um,
like what we're doing now in a podcast form. We're having a long drawn out
right.
conversation. We can finish a thought, but everything's quick and it things are becoming so impersonal,
Yeah.
right? And I don't know. Sometimes I sit here and I think, man, what future am I trying to work up for? Like,
Right.
why not just live and fucking party for, because the future's not certain, but now things are changing so fucking quick.
Oh,
It's so hard
dude,
to keep up.
it's wild. So I'm a big fan of psychedelic drugs. I I just it's interesting that the psychedelic drugs have given me, as much as people suck, they've given me a greater love for human life, just human life in general, because you realize humans are fucking awesome. You think about the amount of shit that has happened in my lifetime alone. When I grew up, we had we had Blackberries, flip phones. We didn't have touchscreens yet. 2007 came around and the iPhone dropped. The fucking touchscreens, we had apps. I mean, it was crazy. The amount of technological advance in my lifetime alone is insane. Look, 200 years ago, we had, the start of like automobiles, and industry was starting to pick up, and just it's weird to think about that only maybe 200 years ago we were just starting to get into automobiles and all of this, and now technology in just my lifetime alone has exploded. It's crazy. uh but the thing is, humans are they're such incredible creatures, but we have a lot of faults. We have a lot of things. People get so caught up with um, that instant gratification, especially now. Like I was saying, in my lifetime alone, it's crazy how far technology's come. And technology is a great thing, but it's also fucked up a lot of people. Um,
Yeah.
as far as is the generations growing up now, uh, and I really just people aren't as creative thinkers now because of the technology, and it's I relate this to music. You listen to the music from the eras of the going way back into early music, like the 30s, 40s, 50s, all the way to the 90s. I think the 90s is where it really stops, because you started to get into the electronic music, and there's not as much passion and soul put into the music, and with the
I think it's
the
because if you try to learn how to program something, it works one way. There's one way to do it, right? Or there's a few
right.
ways. But when before that, like that's why I love metal and
Yeah.
rock, is because someone has to get up there. They have to learn the
Yeah.
skill. They have to take the time and put the energy into it. For the harsh vocals, it's not just a guy yelling into a mic. There's false chords, distortion, there's highs, lows, mids, there's all kinds of stuff they have to
Yep.
learn. And
I
you can
so
tell, even if it's not the best band, they still
Yeah.
do something.
This was so I was thinking on my ride home today, I was listening to classic rock, and I'm thinking, holy cow, these guys take, any classic rock band. I love classic rock, old country, just they had to put in a lot of effort and soul and time and thought into it, and it's the music's so much better than what we have as far as modern music go, and I like the modern music. There's some good stuff. There's some really good artists now. Take Greta Van Fleet. Okay.
Yeah.
Greta Van Fleet is awesome. They're a new
Oh yeah.
band. They sound like that old sound, but they put in the time and the effort, and they work on it. Sure, they may have all the new tools to use that the old 70s, 80s rockers didn't have, but they still put the time and effort into creating that product. And it's so much better music than, say, Lil Pump and all these modern mumble rappers and stuff. They'll just mumble about whatever, and then the producer, they don't even really do all the editing and producing. They just sing, and write, maybe some of them write the lyrics, but um, it's not as, I don't know. There's not as much effort put into it. That's why I love classic rock, and why I love metal, and just it's there's they put effort into it, and it
Yeah,
goes back
like
to
look at bands like Spirit Box or even really heavy stuff like Slaughter to Prevail. Like they do
right,
these crazy, these insane sounds, and it's so complex. And they not just passion, but it it lets you see because when you listen to a rap song that sounds the same as another,
yep,
you can tell not only what they're feeling, but you learn about them and how they think and what they might
right.
perceive
They've got
things.
their
It's
own
kind of like
twist
how,
on it. But
yeah,
that's the thing. That's the difference between metal, rock, classic rock, and even some of the country. I don't like some of the modern country now because it's all
I
kind of the
don't either,
same.
but I
But
like
the
bluegrass.
the thing is, they put their actual soul into it. They're sitting down playing a physical instrument and writing the lyrics and everything. There's so much more uh, connection there. Whereas with the modern music, as far as hip hop and pop in general, the only effort they really put in is writing the lyrics and singing. There's
I
not
think
as
it's
much connection as far as the instruments go and the amount of soul put into the music. But
what I've noticed is like you could have because if you have you ever noticed that like sure they may be fantastic singers or whatever, but there's not one just fuck ugly like pop singer,
oh
like
yeah,
just hideous with this golden voice, like the ugly duckling. But I think it's all personality too, because
yeah,
everything becomes a brand. Everything's a brand now. Look at YouTubers. After
yep.
the ad collapse of what was it,
The apocalypse.
2014?
Yep.
Yeah, like after the adpocalypse happened, now they're like, hey, buy my merch, or sponsored by this person, and they're a character.
Right.
So, like
And
Lil Pump. If he put as much effort into his music, if you like his music, that's fine. This
right.
is just from our perspective,
Yep.
from trying to compare the two. So we're not trying to say if you listen to rap, then you're not cultured or you've got bad taste. We differ. But when you listen to music like that, um, if you look at the people, they stand out and look really unique, but the music seems to blend together. So now we've gotten to a point because of social media and because of entertainment, they're trying to entertain you more because they interview constantly. Used
Yeah.
to be it was like once or twice a year. If they released a new album, they talked about that album, and that was it. And what thought process went into the album and what's gone on with their life to put them to what made that sound come out of them. But
Right.
now it's all about
So,
their political views, how they
oh yeah.
are, shit
Oh
like
dude,
that.
it's all about their personality as a person. Back in the day, it was about the music, and interviews
Yeah.
were great. You had full documentaries that were an hour and a half long about the
Yeah.
band and how they wrote everything, and now it's all short, condensed shit. But um, okay, so like I said, there's artists that just don't really care. They'll write some short shit and then it blows up and it's awesome. But that's them. I I don't really like that. I like people that put in, take Billie Eilish, okay? I used to think Billie Eilish was the most overrated. Just every girl that was like 12 to 14 just loved her and her style of writing and everything. I thought she was overrated. But the thing is, she's such a critical thinker, and the stuff she's writing about are real world problems. She puts so much emotion into the music. Now, the music is industry created, right? The actual
Yeah.
music itself is industry and electronically created, but I overlook it because of the lyrics and the meaning she puts behind the music. So I really enjoy her stuff because she's put a lot of mental thought and her problems and real life issues into the music. And I've enjoyed that. I've had periods of time where I can relate so much to some of the songs she's written. So there are artists now that I enjoy, right?
Like,
I'm
look
not
at Post
saying
Malone.
Post
Like,
Malone,
that man,
another good
I
one.
have seen countless, it doesn't matter what genre, between rappers, people do rock and metal who've met him and talked to him. Like, he used to be in a metal band,
Yeah.
and then he went to more. more mainstream music, but you can tell he's still got
He
those roots,
still
his
puts in the
appearance,
effort. And I
and
like,
he loves music. And
right.
that's what I've seen multiple interviews with different people, like through Loudwire, and they talk about how they met him. They said, dude, I've never met somebody who has a true passion for music like
It's the
that.
passion, dude. And I'm glad you brought up Post Malone. He lives in my state. He lives in Utah. But
Really.
yeah, he lives in Utah. He's probably 45-minute drive from me. I could probably drive to his house. um but
Get to hanging out with Post Malone.
right, that'd be wild. Um the thing is with artists like that, that's what differentiates the mainstream bullshit that everyone hears and it's the same shit from the people that actually care and write well. I love Post Malone because, similar to Billie Eilish, a lot of the lyrics and things he talks about are real world issues, emotions that he's going through, and you can really hear the difference between the stuff that he writes and stuff that just, say Little Pump, Little Nas, little all that shit, right? They're just, it's all the same shit, So, but I don't know. As far as jobs go, right? We were talking about jobs at the start of this, and
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I said, with the way people are nowadays, no one really wants to bust their ass to get money, and I don't know. So America, as it is now, we're kind of crumbling very rapidly in the past few years. Just this economy in general is falling apart. You don't have to be an idiot to see it. Gas prices alone are a good fucking uh, sign of that, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I'm a lot of people. I don't know. Biden. We could get political and shit. I'm not going to.
Yeah.
I'll just say this: with the way the government's going now, with their mandates and everything, it's the U.S. Everybody says, "Oh yeah, USA, number one country in the world." It's not that case anymore. We are not the number one country in the world. And I hate to bust your bubble, people, but we are not the number one in the world anymore. We may be as far as military presence, but that's about it.
Military, and we there's a lot this country still offers, but
Oh yeah.
in
As far
terms of if
as
you were to look at it on paper in our trade and GDP and stuff like that, entertainment is where we are.
right. Oh yeah.
Entertainment is we are
Entertainment,
the
we're
number
the
one.
number
I
one.
mean,
As far as creating
but
movies, music, we're definitely up there in number
like
one.
I've started looking up foreign car websites just to see what, like I'll go to like Toyota.jp, which is the Japanese website, and
Right.
my phone will translate it for me. And if you guys have never heard of the Toyota Hilux, think about the new ones look like a mixture between the Tacoma and the Tundra. They're a mid-level truck but
Yeah.
a little beefier. And they're some of the best trucks on earth.
Toyotas are
Like
good. Yeah.
but this truck specifically, like they took it in top gear and they like ran it into a wall and dropped it from a building and drowned it and lit it on fire. And a mechanic could only use basic tools to fix it. That was the
Yep.
gimmick. And it kept running after all
Yeah.
this. It's been
Listen.
drowned, crashed, dropped, burned, and
Yeah.
it still ran. But you cannot
Toyotas
get
are.
them in the US unless you pay a 25% import tax on
Yeah.
the cost. So you have to buy it and a quarter of it and whatever it takes to import it and then convert stuff from kilometers to miles. And the
Yep.
reason is it was so good that the US government was worried that it would overtake American markets. So
Look
they
at the
banned it.
Toyota. Is it the Tacoma? The trucks. I think it's the Toyota
Yeah.
Tacoma. Those trucks. So the 90s series of those trucks. There are literally thousands of million. I shouldn't say millions, but at least
Tens of
thousands,
thousands.
tens of thousands of them still on the road. Like
Yeah.
my cousin is running a 1998 Toyota Tacoma, and it's got 350,000 miles. It's still running fine,
Yeah.
no issues. So you take an example. I actually had a conversation at work with a coworker of mine about modern trucks because the company I work for, they're all running Chevys. Now,
Yeah.
here's the thing. I love Chevy. I was raised in a Chevy family. I drive a Chevy. Chevys are great. You can't go wrong with Chevy. But he was like, oh yeah, Ford, Chevys. Everyone argues over the shit. And I'm like, look, here's the thing. With modern vehicles, It doesn't really matter. They're all kind of built the same, and they all have about the same lifespan now because everything is so similar. So everyone argues, oh, Ford and Chevy, every company now has their issues, and it's really a matter of opinion what you like. So you
Yeah.
take an example of Ford F-250 versus the Chevy 2500. You can compare them. You can run them side by side. Chevy has the advantage as far as impact and collisions. They have a better framework, and they're kind of built better. But as far as overall performance, there is hardly any. It's really hard to find one that's better because they run about the same on gas mileage. They run about the same as far as lifetime span. Vehicles have become so good now in the modern era that Ford, Chevy, Dodge, they're all about the same. So
Oh,
really,
it's about money, right?
yeah,
Like when they
exactly.
first built these things, they said they had a purpose, right? They needed it. They said, I need a vehicle that can haul stuff and I can throw stuff in and can beat the shit out of it and it won't get destroyed in the process. And they came up with it and it worked. And then someone said, hey, that's pretty cool, but what if we change this out with this? And then we hit that perfect sweet spot, like I said, about in the 90s, where it was still made with more real raw materials
Yep.
and the process was more hands-on. But now machines do it, you can do it faster. And there's now more like I mean, there's so many schools now. The science of making cars. Just forget about the technology side. You
Right.
want to maximize profits and, you know, keep the market at this level and do this and do that. So these guys, we've refined it so much, it's going to come to a pretty similar conclusion.
Yeah.
And there's going to be
Like I
differences
said.
and there's going to be outliers, but
Right.
um,
But like
like
I said, when it comes down to is overall performance as far as modern vehicles go, there's it's very minimal as far as longevity, if you will, as far as vehicles go, especially now because they're all pretty well built. I'm not going to deny that. I mean, all of them have little issues. The only issue I have with the modern vehicles is all the fucking sensors and computers, and if you have one sensor go out, your whole fucking car's done. Like I don't like the
I was,
modern
yeah,
stuff
I was
for
driving
that
home
reason.
yesterday and my fucking tire light started blinking. I was listening to music real loud and I was like, I didn't hear anything. I was like, fuck, did I just blow a tire?
Right.
I get out and it's blinking at me and I go and I look at my tires, the visual inspection. I've got a tire gauge and I get out and look. I'm like, I was expecting like the rims are gone because it's never blinked at me. It's come on when it gets low, but it's never
Right.
blinked. And I was like, what the fuck? And then I get out and look and there's nothing wrong. And then I get back in the car, it's turned off. I'm like, and it still hasn't come on. I commute to
Yeah.
work up and down the interstate. So, if it was gonna come back on, it would have.
So here's the one issue I have with modern vehicles is okay, they're built pretty well. Like I said, they're all about the same as far as running and all of that. The only issue is you can't work on them now. I'm raised by a mechanic. My dad was a mechanic for 10 years. So my first car was a 1975 Chevy Nova. I worked on that. I could get in the engine bay and work on the engine itself. There was a lot of room, and it was simple. Somebody that was raised by a mechanic who's taught very minimalistic things like tire pressure and oil changing and just learning how to read an engine, little things, belt tuning and all that. But it was so simple that I could basically, with that specific, the 70s and 80s vehicles, I could literally do an engine swap and not know jack shit about vehicles because it's so
Yeah.
simple. It's like a Lego. It's literally like a Lego. It was very plug and play. Everything was very simple. First vehicle was a 75 Nova, and I worked on it a lot, and it was awesome. Second vehicle was my 1979 Chevy Cheyenne, which was my dad's truck in high school, and it was sat in the yard for years. Here's the problem with the modern vehicles is if your engine goes, the whole car's fucked. Back in the day, right? So my 1979 Chevy Cheyenne was sat in the yard for over 20 years. I took that car, I put a truck, I put a new battery in it, I drained the fuel, put new fuel in it. It started right up. Started up, no problem. The engine
Yeah.
roared to life. That's the problem with the new vehicles is if you have a engine issue, there's so much electronics and plastic and bullshit in the way you can't even work on it, and you have to. They've made it now so you have to take it into a specialist with all the correct tools to remove everything to get to the engine. That's the
Have you
only.
seen what farmers have to do with their tractors now?
I no.
Dude, they so I watched a full documentary on it. Literally, let's say you've got your GPS sensor up here, which now farming is not like it used to be where you just kind of learn
Yeah.
the tools of the trade. Now they have computers in there that'll maximize, okay, so if you go at this angle through this, then this will be the best cut based on the ground you've got, and it's all connected to
Yep.
satellites and shit. If that goes out, you're fucked.
Yep.
Farming is so technologically advanced now, it's insane.
Yeah. It's pretty
But
crazy.
here's the crazy shit that John Deere does. I love John Deere, but here's the problem. Not only will they need to replace that sensor, but they'll have to activate it. And it
Yeah.
has to be made to work with that tractor. Because
Mhm.
if it doesn't, it won't even turn on. So
Yeah.
you have to take it to John Deere and get it from them. You can't
Yep.
you can't, even if it's the same model year model tractor, you can't take one off of one out of a scrapyard and put it on there because they have to go in with a computer and turn
It
it
all
on.
has to work
So
out. Yeah.
now farmers have started, you know how we'll get like what is it? Like Minecraft, but we get mine shafters. It runs on the Minecraft server.
Yep.
It's bootleg. It's legit, but it's not. They're doing shit like that. They've got bootleg hacked technology where they'll use like the old, like the one version older, and they'll steal it and copy it and make it run. And they learn to hack their tractors
Yep.
to make them run. And that's the way the car industry is. Now you have to go get certified in this and that, which I'm glad they're certified. Because when people hear that when they go buy a car, like, oh, we've got certified technicians. It's like, oh, that's great. Used to be, it didn't matter if you're certified. Can you do it? Can you not? I like
Yeah.
me being a forklift operator, I should be certified. That means I'm not going to kill myself or others.
Yeah.
But your car, you shouldn't need a specialist who's certified and sent to a 2016 Toyota Corolla college, and then
Yeah.
the
So,
next year model comes out and he's
right.
got to go back to school
Yeah.
for it. Like, what the fuck?
This
How
is
am I
this
supposed to do
is
this?
this is what I was saying is the modern vehicles are so advanced with all their computers and shit. No one can work on them unless they've gone to college and studied all of that. I think it's so stupid. It's kind of a critical fail as far as vehicles and they go, because like I said, my 75 Nova, I worked on that and barely knew anything about engines. By the time I was done, I knew every bit of that. I replaced the steering column, I replaced the front axle, I did a bunch of engine work. All, just looking at it, I didn't even have to look like study all that shit. Nice thing is, so we were talking about social media. I love YouTube because YouTube has been a great thing as far as learning. Dude, you
Yeah,
can learn how to do all that shit online now. You did back in the day, that was kind of the disadvantage. You had to go to somebody like my dad who would know how to actually work all that shit and explain it to you. Now it's all on YouTube and you can learn all that shit within minutes. 10-minute video showed me how to pull the full front axle off and I had it done in an hour. Like I love YouTube for that reason. Um, but that's the thing. So for all the listeners right now, we're getting towards the end of the podcast. One piece of advice I would give to you is if you want to learn something, there's no excuse for you not to. Especially now. You want to learn how to do carpentry? Go look it up on YouTube. You want to learn how to work on an engine? Go look it up on YouTube. Everything is available on YouTube, and it's a great platform for learning. So
yeah.
do not hold yourself back from learning. There's so many things.
College.
Knowledge is so readily available now that you have no excuse for not learning something new. If you want to play a guitar, okay. When I first started playing guitar 12 years ago, YouTube was available and I started to learn chords, I learned songs, and I'm a pretty well mastered guitarist and musician because I studied and I wanted to learn it. YouTube was a huge factor. If you want to learn how to pull apart an AR-15, YouTube's right there. YouTube is a great thing for knowledge. It is amazing. Um, and I'm sure that you have probably watched a YouTube video on maintaining and doing a little upgrading and there's so many modifications to rifles and stuff. You can all learn it on YouTube. It's all readily available for you. So there's no excuse for not having knowledge now because it's so
Because
readily available.
colleges have run it through our head that, oh, you don't have a degree, well, that means you don't know anything. It's like
Yeah.
used to
Okay.
up until
Oh,
like the
dude,
past
I'm
20
glad you brought that
years,
up.
up until like the past 20 years, you just had to know. I mean, you learn from someone who did it,
Yep.
and the knowledge was a tangible result. Now, it doesn't matter if you can do it or not. Did you pay them enough money? And did you
College is so
fake your way
overrated.
through it enough?
Yeah.
Okay, now you can get the job there.
So,
Because we've got these guys coming in, they're like, oh, I know X, Y, and Z, but then we hand them,
right.
like, I handed a guy an edge grinder yesterday, and all you do with an edge grinder is
Yeah.
you just, it's a little spinny thing, and
Yep.
you hold it against metal, and it just rounds it out. It's like a sander, but for heavier stuff. And he looked at it. He's got it trying to cut with it. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yep.
And he's like, it's a cutter. I said, no, no, you take you
Yeah.
deburr it, dumbass. Like, what are you doing?
So,
He's talking about I've trade school trained and shit. It's
yeah.
like, no, you're not.
No, no, you're not. So here's the thing with college. I've said this on the podcast several times. College is so overrated. It's absolutely broken. Because okay, so my oldest sister, is a registered nurse. She went to school for 8 years to become a full registered nurse. Um, she is now a nurse and all that. My second oldest sister, I have two older sisters. So my second oldest, she studied in a she went to college, but only for 2 years. She became a not a registered nurse. What are they called? Fuck, I can't think of the name of it right now. Basically, she only studied for
Medical
two
assistant.
years. Yeah, she like a medical assistant. She does home care, hospice. She makes more money than my sister does as a registered nurse, and she only studied for 2 years. The thing is, my oldest sister said 75% of the things you actually learn in college, you don't use ever. Ever. Maybe on a rare occasion, but 75% of the stuff you actually learn, you'll never use. Same goes for anything in college. Anything.
Re- the reason why, because my aunt's the head professor of the James Madison University's industrial design, is that there are departments, and if you go up north, unions, where they'll go to the schools and lobby and say, we need this course, you can charge this much for it. And they're like, okay, that's good, but what does that apply to? Why would they need this? Well, I mean, life, right? Like, it could come up maybe in like 30 or 40 years into life. It's like,
Yeah, no. So,
if I went to school for graphic design and they put me in a fucking math class, I'm
yeah.
like, what are you doing?
So, here's the thing. I'm thinking of three things that as you're studying them in college or trade school, there are three things that you actually everything you learn you can actually use. Number one, mechanics. Mechanics now, you go to trade school, you go to mechanic school, you're going to use almost everything you actually learn. Number two, culinary school. Okay? Culinary school, you're going to use everything in that trade. Everything you learn in culinary school, you will actually use at some point in your career. And the third thing is, like, fuck, I had it in my head. I can't even think of it now, but like there are
And
certain things that you will actually learn in college that will actually benefit you all the time.
it's any class that takes physical work that will result the result of your effort will be a physical, tangible result.
Yes.
You know, if it's something I can do on
Oh,
a computer, I can learn that.
that's what it was psychology, right? If you're studying to be a psychology major, you're going to use almost everything. Take Jordan Peterson. I love Jordan Peterson because
Yep.
he's so knowledgeable, and the way he is able to teach this on YouTube and stuff, it's so simple. And people were blown away. That's kind of why he blew up in like 2016. He blew up because the way he teaches things is so simple. But it's all psychology. So psychology, culinary school, and mechanics, those are some examples of things you will use 100%. If you're studying to be a psychologist and you're going to be helping people with mental status and everything, you will use every bit of that trade, and to the fullest extent. There's nothing that you can't. It's not like the medical industry where, like my sister said, 75% of the stuff they learned they don't actually use. With those just few examples, those are perfect things that you will use 100% of the time. So, um, all right, we are at the end of the podcast. Thank you for being here, Austin. We had a great podcast. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's so to finish this up, I'm glad you talked about like we talked about short-term shit and how everything is instant gratification. I love that podcasts have been the one thing that have kind of kept people in long-term, long hour-long videos or hour-long conversations. It's just great to hear opinions. That's the reason I started this podcast in the first place, was because I wanted to talk. And it's so great because I can literally take this. I don't have to edit it. I can just take it, put it into audio form, publish it. People listen to it. And it's so simple. It's
Well,
not.
what's great is like when you have a, what are they called? Fuck. When you have, oh my God, my brain just broke. Oh, when you have overhead and you have, producers and writers and shit like that, and
Yeah.
they're controlling the narrative. But a lot of podcasts, it's so hard to corrupt them because they're a passion project.
Yeah.
And even when they do get, let's say some of them are picked up and you watch them, everyone listens and then no one does. And
Yep.
then you can keep a podcast and be successful at a podcast
Yeah. Take
while
Joe Rogan.
it's your control.
Perfect example. Joe Rogan started a podcast. In the early days, it was just him and two other friends bullshitting for 3 hours at a time about world topics and whatever. You just sit and talk, and you publish it and do all that. It was simple. And then because of Joe Rogan starting to get guests on there, and it's just kind of let up, and now podcasting has become so popular and common. You can listen to everything, and it's fun for people to just sit down and listen, not only talk but just to listen. I listen to podcasts at work all the time because it's fun to just hear people's opinions. I listen to sports podcasts. I listen to like government podcasts. I listen to there's a podcast for everything for everybody, and that's why I loved doing this and starting this podcast. When I first started, it was all I wanted it to be more sports oriented, but then I realized it pretty quickly. It's just fun to sit and bullshit for
Yeah.
hours at a time. So, so again, thank you, Austin, for being here. Appreciate you having you on.
Yeah. I'll try
Yeah,
to make it next week.
yeah, we do it every Thursday. It's a blast. So thanks to everybody for listening and watching. We will see you next week. Bye bye.